Hey friends, this is Natalie Irvin, and welcome to the ICU podcast, where we explore how we can find significance in the unseen work of leaders and learn to be intentional to truly see others in our everyday lives. I can't wait to share with you, so let's get started. Today's scripture is from 1 Corinthians 16:14. Let all that you do be done with love. Hey friends, and welcome back to the ICU podcast. Today we're with my good friend Sonia Dismukes, and Sonia is a mom. She's a wife. She's a CPA and a business owner. She's got a lot going on. She's a double eagle with her bachelor's and master's in accounting from Georgia Southern. She runs a custom residential construction company called Boulder Homes with her husband, and is the founder of the nonprofit Saylor's Light. So we're so excited to have her on the podcast. She's done so many things. She wears so many hats, and she didn't even know why we asked her to be on, which is exactly the point of this podcast. Is something that I see in her is so much more than she even saw in herself. And so I'm excited to highlight to you today. Sonia and I have been friends for a while now. We actually had a lot of mutual friends in college, which is so strange. I even roomed with one of Sonia's best friends, and she was at my house, and I didn't know who she was. So, but we got to know each other because we partnered with them, and they built our house when we first moved back to Statesboro, and then they built the house that we are currently sitting in. So, 2 times, they're just a joy to work with, and so that's kind of how the friendship got started. And then, we've just been in each other's lives in different capacities since then. So it's exciting to have you on. You've been through a lot. Your family's been through a lot, but you are such an incredible mom. And that's one of the things that I see in you all the time is just how much intentionality you put into parenting your children. And your children are phenomenal. They're so much fun to be around. But you really... y'all are at the beach, y'all are at games, Georgia Southern games, just always doing so many fun things. And I can see where that is very intentional to give them experiences. And I love that.
You're so sweet. You're making me sound, I do all these things.
You do. Okay. You do all the things.
I do enjoy being busy. So you're right. Like I want to keep my kids busy, and I want us to be together all the time. Yeah. So I figure if I do fun things, they'll want to be with me.
Absolutely. I think it's working.
Yeah,
I think your approach
they'll
is
want to
working.
hang out with us, right?
Yeah.
So when they're teenagers, all their friends will want to hang out with us. So I'm like, if we just keep doing
great strategy,
all the fun things, they'll stay home, and then they'll go to Southern.
Yeah.
And then they'll live in Statesboro, and they'll never leave me.
And you'll build all their houses on a compound together.
And all the grandkids will walk to my house.
I mean, I just love your strategy. It's great. I hope it works out.
I'm not as hopeful as I want to be, but we're going to strive for it.
That's cool.
Brainwash them into being Eagles.
I love that.
You can help me.
Okay.
Tell them Georgia Southern.
A minute. And just to let everyone know, my attire today is something that we're going to get to, but it's Saylor's Light. So I'm wearing a sweatshirt.
It's cotton candy.
But it's beautiful tie-dye cotton candy. It's actually one of my favorites that you guys have, but we'll get into that. So Sonia, just tell me a little bit about your backstory, who you are, how you came to live in Statesboro and have the business that you have.
I was just thinking, I didn't know if you knew all this. So I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and lived in Nashville a few years when we were kids, and then we moved back to Dayton. And then I met Matthew, my husband, on vacation when I was in high school in Hilton Head. And we did the long distance thing for a year, and then I went to University of Tennessee for a year and thought...
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I went there my freshman year, and I majored in sports medicine. Bet you didn't know that either. Exercise science, sports medicine, yeah. And look where that got me. It's not what I do. So then I thought, Matthew's going to finish, and he's going to move to Knoxville, and we're going to go to this big college together, and it's going to be awesome because there was no way I was moving to Statesboro, Georgia, right? Like there was nothing.
We all think that.
I know, compared to where I was from. And so then I did the freshman year there, and he drove up there every other weekend. It's like, I don't know, an 8-hour drive or something. And I was horrible at biology. And then so I was like, sports medicine's, there was a lot of science classes you had to take. I was like, okay, change of plans, right? Which I now know happens in life all the time. Like plans don't go as we hope. But so then I took I needed an elective. So I was like, don't know what my major is going to be. And I took an accounting elective. And this is funny, this whole like being seen thing, not that I necessarily loved accounting, but I took this elective and it just all came very easy to me. It was fine. I was like, this is an elective. It's a 1-hour class. Well, the professor comes up like probably midway through the semester, and she's like, did you know that like the average grade in here is like a D? Like nobody is fair. Like accounting's not for everybody, and like you're getting A's on everything. And I was like, okay. And she's like, you might want to like consider accounting. And I was just like, no, I want to be like, I'm going to do physical therapy. I'm going to help people get better. Like I just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I was good at it. It came easy. So then I came down here for like spring break in March of that year, I guess my freshman year. And I loved Georgia Southern. Like I loved it, and UT was so big, and you couldn't like talk to your professors right away. It was just this felt so much more homey, and I loved Statesboro all of a sudden. So I transferred here, and then I got my undergraduate in accounting, and then I got my master's of accounting, and then I got my CPA license during the master's, and then I went to work at an accounting firm for a year, where I learned I do not like sitting behind a computer. Yeah. All day long. I don't like tax season. I want to be outside, and I want to stand up, and I don't like giving people bad news all day that nobody likes owing money, right? So it's like, that's pretty much what I did. So I learned that was maybe not for me, and then we were pregnant with our first child. And so then I stayed at home for a while, and Matthew was doing the construction thing. And then it just all organically went into, I started helping with the spec houses and colors and design, and had another kid, and then I just got more involved with the business of the construction, and I was able to do the books at home. So now he had somebody who like understood the numbers, and so then I could use my skills to help with that, and then that just grew into what it is today. Yeah. And then our third child, who I guess we'll talk about later, she passed away, which is where the nonprofit came from. And then we had our fourth child, who's 4 now. And here we are.
Here we are.
We're here.
You guys are doing big things. You're busy, very busy with the business and with the nonprofit. Just came back from a conference speaking about Saylor's Light, which is really amazing. It's amazing to see what God's led you through and allowed you to accomplish. And so I'm really proud of you. I think it's pretty incredible what you do every day. And one of the things that we talked about before we started was just how you and Matthew work together. You know, that doesn't always work for couples.
I've heard that.
You guys
I've heard some are like, no way I could do
you
this.
guys have really made it work. And so kind of explain how you use your strengths and weaknesses to each other's advantage in this situation.
I think we learned pretty early, but still, we still learn that like he's good at certain things and I'm good at certain things. And if he needs or tries to do what I'm doing, because maybe he needs to, maybe I'm doing something and he needs to try to do the accounting. I mean, it's probably just going to make me have to do it for a little bit longer later, right? So like I've learned that he's really good at, you know, things on the site that maybe I want to be good at, but I'm not yet, and he's teaching me. And he's learned that I'm, you know, maybe a little bit better at the client communication part. So I think organically over the past few years, like I go more towards the communication and the scheduling and keeping everybody up to date, and he handles the job site. And it works well. You know, like it works really good, and I think we're in a good spot where we both know our strengths and weaknesses, and we know when to be like, you know what, I'm not gonna tell you anymore how to do that because you know how to do it better than I do. And we can learn from each other, and I can genuinely say like, can you just tell me how and why? Because I don't know how and why, and I want to know. And he can say the same thing, and not that always me explaining accounting. He is like, okay, thanks, but like maybe I just don't need to ask, you know?
Maybe you can just take care of it.
He's like, you know, I wanted to understand, but maybe it's fine that I don't. So I think it just makes it all run a lot smoother, and we're not stepping on each other's toes.
I love that. It seems like y'all work really well together.
We do. We really actually, we really enjoy being together all the time and working together. Good. So that makes it fun too, because when you get to work with your best friend every day, it's like, it's enjoyable. It's not, we don't not like it ever being together. And it's, you know, I'm sure y'all are the same way, but like if I'm upset about something, I'm telling Matthew first. So if there's something bothering us, we're both right there. And it's like, that's the person we were going to tell anyways, and we don't have to wait till we get home.
That's cool. Right there. So tell me about with your family. You guys have a business, you have a nonprofit, but it seems as though you balance that well. Okay, I know it may be, not what you're thinking, but from the outside perspective looking in, you are very intentional with your family time.
Well, I think we both, we know that whatever, and we've had to kind of, I think the last few years have gotten a lot better, but we know that like whatever work list is sitting on the desk will be there tomorrow. And like this afternoon's basketball game won't, So it's like, I am pretty good unless there's an important meeting or something that's really pressing. If a hospital needs boxes, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do what I need to do that night. But for the most part, it's like we know that whatever this long list is, it's going to be there tomorrow. It's going to get done. But like this afternoon of them being home's not. They're only going to get busier. So we both tried to be done at a good time every day. And once the kids are out of school, if they're hanging out for an hour, I'll do some things. But I try really hard, we both do, to just be like, okay, that's enough of that, because all this work's going to be there, and really what am I going to in a year be like, I wish I would have done on that Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
So we are really intentional about it, and I think we've gotten better about it. I used to let the list, like, I like to check, I'm type A, I like to check it off, and if there was more left, I'd be like, no, we need to, and Matthew's like, no, we don't. Like, it's okay. Like, it's going to be there tomorrow morning, and our brains will be fresh, and our kids are here right now. So
that's true.
We've gotten a lot better about it, and I think it does make it better. The kids are better if I'm there.
Yeah.
Versus versus trying to work right there at the island while they're doing something. Right. I'm halfway in it. I'm halfway in both things. So being able to be like in something. Now to say that it happens. We're like driving somewhere and my computer's on a hotspot. Yeah. And I'm working while we're in the car. But for the most part, we try.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And that's something that I do struggle with, like finding that balance, because I have this, to-do list looming over my shoulder, and I feel like I've just got to get it done. I've got to get it done. And that's all I can think about. But when I'm not present with my kids, then
other things pile up, right?
Yeah.
It all gets harder.
It all gets harder. Everything gets harder. And so I think I love your perspective on just, it'll be there tomorrow, but my kids won't be little forever.
Yeah, and they're not going to be here in the afternoon. Yeah. But I will say, and the other thing about the checklist is I feel good when a checklist is so sometimes Matthew does understand, and he's like, your brain will feel clearer if we check these off.
Right.
But other times I have to be like, I need to get over this for a second and be like, go literally shut the door in there and be like, that'll be there. And it's not the easiest thing to do. But
it's just a balance.
Yes, but I do think it's gotten more of a habit, and it feels better to be like, done is done. I don't need to be half in two things at one time,
Yeah. So tell me about, like, with parenting, your kids, all three of them have different personalities. Very different.
Don't they?
It's very interesting. So tell me about how you see your kids for who they are and their strengths and how you pull that out. Because I feel like you are, again, I keep using the word intentional, but I feel like you are very intentional with things that you do, which is great. But I feel like you see certain things in them and then you support that.
Yeah, it took practice, I think. Yeah, but we try. The love languages, the kids' love languages. Okay, so I think Matthew and I listened to some podcasts. We got really into like parenting podcasts at one point when we were in the car, whether it was on technology and like, what do we do with all this technology? What do we do with this? What do we do with this? And then there was one on like the love languages of kids or whatever. And we were thinking about it and we were like, oh my gosh, they all three really thrive off something different. And so I try to be like, this one needs a hug multiple times a day. Yeah. This one wants me to tell her how wonderful she is. This one just wants to be with me, so it's like they all three need different things. And once I could be like, oh, they all don't like learn or think the way I do. Like, I want to sit down and let's have a conversation and I'm going to teach you. That's not how they all learn or thrive. And so I think once we learned and we're still every day. It's like they change every single day what they want or need. But I do think that once we kind of thought about that, I can't speak for Matthew, was like, okay, this kid, when they're upset, I just need to hug them, and when this kid's upset, I need to let them go over there, and when this one is, in a weird mood, they need quality time and it's this way versus this way. One wants us to do something with them. The other one wants to be alone with us, by themselves. Yeah. And so we try. Yeah.
That's really...
every day is really hard. different, obviously.
Right.
They wake up and don't like the food I fed them last night.
Of course.
You know?
Because they're kids.
Because they're kids. Right. But I do think seeing what they thrive off of. And I think it took me like sitting down and thinking, because you're in it all day, every day. And so I had to sit there and be like, when does she seem the happiest or feel the best about herself? All of those things. And when does he? And then I was like, oh, they're all a little different in what they, it took some brainstorming. And then for me to make habits out of not doing the same thing for all of them.
Yeah, that's interesting. So taking time to reflect on that.
Because it all jumbles together, right?
It does. It really does. And
when you're with them all day, every day, it all, you just,
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, I need to think. I need to sit down.
And then create habits.
Yes, because it doesn't happen overnight.
That's right. That's really good. Okay, so you have a nonprofit.
I do.
It's called Saylor's Light. Y'all are doing some amazing things through this nonprofit. Tell us about Saylor.
Okay, so Saylor was our third child, and the other two were 1.5 and 3. That sounds, yes, 1.5 and 3. And we were 12 weeks pregnant. We went in, the ultrasound was not normal. They were like, oh, we don't really know. So we got sent to the specialist where they diagnosed her with anencephaly, which they said, can't treat it. There's no cure. There's nothing we can do. And I was like, okay, what do we do? Like, what's next? Right. And he said, well, 99% of mothers, they terminate today. And I was like, okay. But like, we're looking at the ultrasound, right? And like, she's flipping and moving and I see her little hand. At 12 weeks, they look like their baby. You can see all the little things. And I was like, okay, but like, she's okay. Like, I can see her. And he's like, yeah, your stomach's life support, but there's nothing. And I was like, okay, so like, are there any risks to me if I continue? And he goes, well, nothing abnormal, but all of the pregnancy and all the risk of childbirth, so death and bleeding. And he's naming off all these, all the scary things that come with pregnancy and childbirth. And I was like, okay, here's this doctor I'm supposed to trust. And like, he does this every day. And that's all he's really saying to us. It was like, matter of fact, sent us to the next room, who was the genetic counselor, where I thought maybe she would tell us why, genetic counselor, like she's going to, and she said, if you want an abortion today, you go here. If you want one in 2 weeks, you can drive here. If you want one in 4 weeks, you can drive here. And we were like, okay, and my doctor was out of town. Yeah. My doctor was out of town. So we didn't get to see him till the following week. And when we got in there, he was like, it's okay. You can stay pregnant. You can do whatever you want. I'll deliver your baby. Like, you have no idea. I mean, it was just like this weight off of our shoulders, really. So that was the beginning. And it was, very sad every day and like Googling, why would this happen to us? And that's truthfully probably when all of this intentionality of being a family started, because we did not leave each other. It was like I had these 2 kids. I had one in my stomach who was not going to be here. And it was like, we are just going to be together all day, every day, and we are going to do all the things together. And it was sad every day, obviously, but it was like, I mean, she just taught us to be, every moment was so important. We had no idea how long she would live, even in my stomach, let alone once she was born. And so that whole pregnancy, I made it to 32 weeks, was just a lot of like family memory making, like taking them to Build-A-Bear and making bears with her heartbeat inside, like doing things as a family we could remember, maternity pictures, all the normal things you would do. And so because we knew she wasn't going to live, we had this box of things, right, that we brought to the hospital. Of the other kids had, their footprint on the tree, on an ornament. So I was like, we're going to bring ornaments. We're going to make, with her little footprint on, we're going to bring molds to do her handprint, anything I could think of to do. Because again, like, you only have so much time. And so these memories were important, and they were the only memories we were going to have. Yeah. So we did all the things. And, then afterwards we get home, and it's after the funeral, and I'm looking at all these tangible things. And I'm like, these are so important to me. They're the only things I have. And we all say things don't matter. But, things do matter. And they were the only things I could touch that she had touched and, that we had together. And I remember hearing labor and delivery nurses, just mentioning of losses that were unexpected at the hospital, whether they were at their OB's office and they don't see a heartbeat and they get sent to the hospital, or, just an emergency after birth. And I thought, okay, like they don't have time to go to Hobby Lobby.
Right.
Nobody's thinking about making these things. Right. They only have the hospital blanket. They don't have a special pretty blanket.
Yeah.
So I started donating boxes to the hospital here for those like unexpected losses. And they called me all the time for more. It was like these losses were happening all the time. And I was like, I had no clue, right, that people were losing babies. We don't talk about it a lot. And like that people are losing babies a lot. And I was like, wow, okay. And we have a smaller hospital here. And I thought surely other hospitals have things. Because like I was going to be given a teddy bear, which is fine. They don't have funds for like to do this. And like 4 years in, it was Matthew. And he was like, Sonia, I think this is needed everywhere. Like, I just feel like you need to call other places. And I was petrified. And I was like, no. Like, we have 3 kids. I'm busy. That scares me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, because we couldn't fund any more than what we were doing here ourselves. I was like, I have no clue. And he, like every week, he'd be like, I really think. So finally, I called Memorial in Savannah, and sure enough, like they were so thankful. And I started donating them there. And that's when we started the nonprofit. It was like, I can't fund this myself. And believe it or not, many people have been through a miscarriage or a stillborn or a family member. And so the donations came in, and we were able to keep donating these boxes to Memorial. And now we are in like 28 hospitals and pregnancy resource centers and NICUs and PICUs. I hadn't even thought about NICUs and PICUs. And they reached out to me and were like, the NICUs need these. And we're in 8 different states. Wow. And it's so sad. Obviously, it's awful.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that these families feel so alone and isolated, and for them to feel seen and be like, oh, wow, this is all here. And somebody's like thinking about me before it happened, and hear all these things. And some parents don't want them, and the nurses do it anyways. And I got a call from a mom a couple years later who was like, I never wanted to open the box. And I opened it, and I'm so thankful to have this handprint mold and this ornament with his footprint on it. And it's sad, and I wish people didn't have to use them, but they do. And so I just keep trying to get them to as many families, as we can, because hospitals they just don't have the services that for this. They don't have the funds. They don't have the boards anymore, like a bereavement board. I think I have 2 hospitals that actually have a bereavement coordinator. The rest, it's the nurses doing all this. So it's a resource for the nurses too. It's there for them in a pretty box. I had nurses say, I'm just grabbing stuff out of drawers, like trying to comfort these families, but I don't, so for it all be there for them too, I think is a weight off their shoulders when they're just trying to comfort these families as well. So that was a very long story.
No, it was perfect.
It is, but that's where it is now, and how it got there.
That's so beautiful. And it's so cool to see that all came from a tragedy in your life.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
It's all her. It's,
But she then, with her life, her small life, ended up creating this beautiful thing of hope. And I could just cry thinking about it, because it's a need that people do not see.
No,
and they don't even know that it's happening. And then when it happens, people are like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. It just kind of, it's uncomfortable to talk about.
It is. People get very, very uncomfortable. And I try to tell people that like people would say, I just don't want to make you sad. And I'm like, I'm sad.
Yeah.
You saying something is not going to make me any more sad than I am. It's actually going to make them feel better that you're like saying their kid's name. You know what I mean? That you're not ignoring, that they're seen, right? That like they know that you're going through something and they see you and they're not ignoring it and like, oh, let's just talk about everything except what's going on.
Yeah.
And our friends and family were great about that while we were pregnant, because that was an uncomfortable elephant in the room. Like, here are all my friends pregnant and I'm pregnant and we know my baby's not going to live, right? But people were so great about just saying her name or, not hiding from what was going on. And you saying that it all came from her. Like at her funeral, our babysitter had written something for it to be read up there. She was with our other 2 at home, and it actually came from like Connection Church of everybody having a purpose, right? And that's where it all came from. And she just said, that like Saylor's life has purpose. And today, like when I think about them reading that and me being like, me thinking at that point, the purpose was like, we are all closer as a family. Our friends are closer. Everyone has realized how precious life is. And that was part of her purpose. But now it's like,
so much
look
bigger.
at this. I know. And it's just incredible. I would have never wished this for anybody. I would have never wished it for myself, but I wouldn't change it because then so much good has come out of it. And I wouldn't have ever been like, something good's going to come out of this, you know? No, I was like, why? This is awful.
Why
what
me?
did I do?
Yeah,
I love my kids.
Right.
Like, you know, like I'm a good mom. Like where? Like why me? And now I'm just like, I'm so thankful for her.
Yeah.
I am.
Absolutely. That's so awesome. Like what impact it's had.
I know.
It's so incredible. And now her name is on everything.
Oh my gosh,
on the back of my sweatshirt.
When I think about that all the time, like I get to see her name because I remember writing her name somewhere and I was like, this is so sad. I won't be able to like write her name on things, right? And then I see like a sticker on a cup with her name and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get to see her name every day. And it's incredible. It really is just such a full circle. Again, wouldn't wish it for anybody, but I'm just thankful for how it all, and it's not me. I didn't do this. I didn't, this is way bigger than me and just kind of happened. You know, I couldn't have come up with all this on my own. Yeah. If I wanted to.
It's incredible. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of your bravery in all of it and how you guys have moved forward with such grace. And I know it's not always easy. I know there's probably really dark moments and there's times when you still, you know, you still had to go through the grieving process. You still had to experience all those real normal emotions that you would feel in a situation like that. And I think there's probably moments that you still do, you know, because her life mattered and, you know, it's a sad situation, but at the same time, how you've taken something and turned it into this beautiful way to honor her every day.
It is. You know? It's really cool just to see her name every day and be like, oh my gosh, like
You're making a difference.
She's
making a difference.
And it is what is important to me. Like it is, I love building houses. It's really fun, but this kind of work is just like, it's just so needed, you know, like it's not me, like this is not for me, it is for them. And I know how these families feel and I know how sad and alone and scared. And I don't know how the ones feel who didn't know this was going to happen, but I can imagine like the shock of it all. And it's just so cool every day to be like, wow, look at this. Like to know how sad and scared and terrified and mad and upset I was, being like, what did I do? I didn't do I don't think I did anything, you know, to be like, God be like, oh yeah, well, watch, you know, like this isn't punishment, you know, and then for it to turn into this is just, it's amazing. It really is. And I'm proud of her.
Me too. Okay, so you mentioned, you know, how great your friends and family were during this time, from the time that you found out about Saylor to after she was born, even for months and then years after, how they've supported you. And you do have an amazing friend group that I know love you so much and love Saylor. So tell me about 4 people who are in the same scenario with a friend who has lost a child, a friend who maybe knows that they're going to lose their child, or someone who has struggled with, you know, had a miscarriage, anything that's very uncomfortable when you may not know how to respond. What advice would you give to those friends of what to do and what not to do?
I've had people ask me this all the time, and I'm always like so nervous because everyone's so different, right? Everyone's how they perceive what their friends say or what they want their friends to say. But for me, there was just all these little moments where, you know, I mean, the smallest things, like, so when I found out, you know, immediately, so we had like a mom group and I told them all. And one of them said, can we pray for you right now? And immediately we just all sat together, they prayed, and she was like, you know, pray. I mean, I think somewhere in the prayer was something about like, maybe she does live, you know, wouldn't that be awesome if this is all wrong? You know, science is wrong. That would be great. But then it was also like, let's value this baby's life while we can. And let's, you know, let us know what this is for. And so right then was like, okay, they didn't just immediately get sad and be like, oh God, You know, like, what do we do?
Right.
And then, you know, a few days later, I walked out on my porch and there's like a little vase with a rose and a note, like just that they picked out of their garden. And then the next day, a few days later, there might have been like a little care basket. It was like, they probably knew I was crying in my room and like maybe she doesn't want us to come in there and like, you know, see her hysterical, but like we're going to leave something here so she knows we haven't forgotten. Yeah. And so it was just little things of knowing people didn't forget, because for me, like when I was in that, and I would tell Matthew this all the time, like when I was out in public, I would feel like all these people are just like living normal lives. Like, look at them. Why do they all get these fair. Like normal lives? Yeah. Like, and I am just dying inside. And it was always just feeling so other. None of those people were looking at me as other. Right. But to me, it felt like that, right? And it felt like, oh gosh, like this, how does everyone go on? So when people would just recognize that I was sad, that sounds kind of selfish now that I say it out loud. But
it's not.
It was like, I just wanted people to remember. And so many of my friends were pregnant, like to remember or just to know that people were thinking about her or us. And that sounds selfish. It does, for me to like want that. But I don't even know that I knew I wanted it, but it felt good when they did to be like, hey, we're thinking about you. Or what do you want to go do something? Or they, you know, the whole baby shower thing came up and it was like, what do you do? Baby showers are like games and fun and like, what's the baby gonna weigh? You know, all the things. And they were all very creative and we just like went to brunch and it was just a time to celebrate that her life matters. Like we didn't have to have this like traditional thing, but it was still a time to celebrate her, you know, and they gave me artwork of her heartbeat, you know, and just were so thoughtful and deliberate about what they did. And it just always made such a difference, you know. Again, I don't know that I wanted it, but once they would do it all and I would feel seen and feel like, okay, no one's forgotten that I'm carrying this baby that like I only have these few months with. Yeah. It just felt good. I mean, it did. It like gave me like, okay, other people know and I'm not just being forgotten here. I'm not alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after the fact, do you feel like, you know, how did you process, I guess, your grief after the fact? But then how did you then get to a place where you are now of hope and of continuing to live your life with joy?
Okay, so once I had her, it was so weird. Like when I thought about having her, like in the hospital, all I could think of was like sadness. Like this is going to be the saddest day of my life, right? Yeah. And her labor was so joyful. Like it was just like meeting my other kids. I was so excited. And even once after delivery, it was joy and grief, like in one room, which is weird that they can like coexist with each other. But they were both there. And it was the strangest thing I could have never imagined that. And it was like, here she was. And I was so in love and so happy. And she was perfect. And I was so happy. And then I would be like, oh my God, I'm so sad, you know, but it was a joyful day and it was happy and friends and family all came to meet her, you know, and that was probably hard for them too, especially my friends, to be like, okay, we have to walk in here and meet her baby, you know, who's not going home with her. But they did, and they smiled and they held her. And it was like, again, seeing that her life mattered to other people instead of just me, you know, like it still mattered. And afterwards, again, it was like, it was a very peaceful day. It was. And how is not me. I have no clue. Didn't do anything. So I can't give you like, here's what I did.
The Lord.
I prayed a lot. People told us they prayed for us. Yes. My nurse walked in, I'll never forget. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a small group that just sent us a text this morning telling us to pray for you.
Wow.
And it was like, she didn't know who I was. And I don't know that they used a name, but once she came in and knew the situation, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know her small group, you know, and they were all just, so people prayed for us and I prayed. No clue how it happened, but it was peaceful and it was joyful and it was sad all in one day. And afterwards, I don't know. I can't tell you I just know that we all stayed together a lot. And again, people came and saw us, and people I didn't know brought me food, never met in my life. You know, food is a thing here.
It is.
In the South, everybody brings everybody food. And we got a lot of food over the next month. And those next 2 months were really hard. I think the after was probably actually harder than the beginning because it felt like she got further away, you know, like the week after, oh, I just held her.
Yeah.
2 months later, it's like, oh my God,
It's real.
she's very far away at this point. And I think it was just staying with friends and family and them saying her name. And then truthfully making these boxes was like, it was, you know, it helped me grieve. And I knew that I was doing something for families who also were so sad and heartbroken. And it's probably where the boxes came from, me subconscious, not knowing that subconsciously, but being like, oh my gosh, I love all these things I have of her and these families don't. And someone had given me a devotional while I was pregnant that I read every night. And it's like how I felt like I stayed alive. I was like, I'm going to read this. And it's called Hope. It's like the year of hope. And it's going to give me some hope to get through this, right? And that's in all of our boxes. And I felt like if they read one page of this and it helps them know that like there's hope and there's joy in the future, and today is the hardest day, you know, like, and we can do hard things and we can get through them. And so I think after it was making these boxes and helping these other families and just friends and family being like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, let's look at Saylor's book. Like, let's look at her birth pictures together. You know, those are hard pictures for people to look at, but they would. And every year we have a birthday party.
Yes,
all of
I
my
love
friends'
that.
kids
I
come.
love it.
And I was so scared the first year. Even every year I still get scared to be like, does everybody want to come over on August 17th? You know,
Of
like
course they do.
It's scary though. You know, it's like they're all busy and like everybody has these things to do, but they all still come. And we blow out the candles and all these little kids know who Saylor is. You know, they all know, and they have never met her except my kids, obviously. But it's just so sweet to keep her alive that way. And everybody does it in their own ways, right? Like I have people who make donations every year on their friends, you know, the day that their baby was born and passed away, and they make a donation. And that's a way for them to send this family a reminder that says, you know, I'm thinking of your baby and you today. So everybody does it a little different, I think, but us just saying her name and continuing to let people know when people ask me how many kids I have, it's really hard, right?
4 kids.
But I say I have 3 at home and I have 1 in heaven, and it's a little uncomfortable for some, obviously. And then some go, my sister had a stillborn. Or, you know, so it's always, it's either a little awkward, but they're okay, or it's a conversation starter, and it makes those people feel really seen that like, oh my gosh, this has happened to somebody
100%.
else. You know, or Chandler talks about it at school, and she was so excited about the rolling monkey percentage night. She took in a flyer to school. She was pumped, right? So she was telling her class, and she's like, and I'm sitting on the rug, and this little boy she talks about Saylor.
Yeah.
You know, she's at home. She talks about her every day. You know, I have a sister, and this little boy said, I had either 1 or 2 baby brothers who passed away at the hospital. And so now you have these 2 7-year-olds.
Wow.
You know, like
that can connect,
just connect over siblings that have passed away. And is that sad? Absolutely. But I mean, to be able to have people talk about it, because that boy is grieving somewhat too.
Sure.
And to have these 2 kids be able to connect on that and then be like, wow, I'm not the only one who has a baby brother or sister who is not here anymore. And I just think it's just so special, and it's hard to talk about. But once we do, it just brings everybody. You'd be shocked at how many people have experienced some sort of loss in that way, or know somebody who has, and they don't want their baby to feel forgotten.
Absolutely.
You know, so doing the hard thing of saying, I have 4 kids. And at the very beginning, it was hard, right? Or when people would ask me when I was due. Or I had the lady on the beach come up to me and tell me I already had enough kids while I was pregnant with Saylor. And I wanted to say a lot of things, right? And be like, oh my gosh, you have no idea. But the things we say to people matter, and we have to be very careful, you know? And so I have learned, and I'm very good at now, just saying I have 4 and 1's in heaven and 3 are at home. And either it starts a conversation or it doesn't, but it, you know, it makes me feel good that I didn't leave her out.
Yeah.
You know, so
Absolutely.
that's some of the things to get through. Now I see her name every day on a piece of paper or a sticker, and it's very, very rewarding to know what a difference she's made. It's not me. Like I couldn't have done this. It's her, but that's where we are.
So tell everybody that's listening just about the boxes and how they can support Saylor's Light.
So each box has, they're at labor and deliveries, at the NICUs, at the PICUs, at the OB's office for the time of the loss. So they're there right away, because there are boxes you can send people after, like a bereavement box. Maybe it's for the mom, and I think those are great too, like spa stuff and stuff to help them relax and a devotional. But this one's there, so you only have a few hours, right? So a handprint mold and a fillable ornament to put the hospital hat in, and the bracelet, and an ornament with pink or blue paint to put their footprint or handprint on an ornament. And we always put a pretty stamp pad in there. You know, the hospital, you do the black stamp pad, which is great.
Yeah.
But like, let's do a blue or a pink or a green
special.
or a gold, a little bit brighter and happier, and a bunch of pieces of cardstock, so they can give them out to family. I had a family, they made one, and I had someone at the hospital tell me that, I don't get to talk to a lot of these families, but the nurses tell me that I want to say they had 5 or 6 siblings, and there were twins that had passed away, and then every sibling got a piece of cardstock, right, with the handprints and footprints. So now I'm like, do I put 8 in there, 10 in there? How many do I need to put in there? I want everybody to get a little, a piece. So then there's a special blanket in there, like a soft baby blanket, because if they rush there and they only get to hold their baby in this hospital blanket, I'm like, maybe they want the pretty one with the bunnies or the little deer or the stars. And so there's a pretty blanket in there, a devotional, a candle, and then a pack of butterfly garden seeds. And I think I named everything. So some things for now, some things for later. And if they don't open it for years, that's okay. But a lot of the nurses go ahead and do the things so that if they do decide to open it, it's all there. And it's also a box to put all your things in. I don't know if you have these, but I have lots of boxes full of things. I have Saylor's boxes, and then I have, maybe a box of cards that people have given me that I love, but a memory box to put things in. And then we have the smaller boxes for if you can't get handprints or footprints, because I found that those families really are not as seen, like, at all. I had the hospital telling me they were saving the boxes for further along pregnancies, and I was like, oh, no, I need all these families. It's a baby, like they're losing their baby. And or for at the OB office, you never make it to the hospital if it's an early enough loss. So that one has a devotional and a candle and the butterfly garden seeds, to just let them know, like, I see them. We want to comfort them. They're not going home empty-handed. They can put their ultrasound pictures in there, a safe place to put these things. And it's all funded on 100% donations, right? So that's hard, but I've been shocked, and I have really learned in the last year that people are so good. There are so many good people, and I think sometimes we, now I'm going to cry. I haven't cried this time yet. I think sometimes it's easy to think that the world is just like bad and not good, and there are so many good people, and I get random, not that monetary things are what matter, but I get random donations from families that heard, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, we want these families. Or I get people from social media I've never met who go to the wish list and they send me a book and they put it in honor of their 7-week miscarriage, so I've just learned that people are so good, and people are so willing to help other people if they can find a way to do it, if they know how. And so it's all donations. We have an Amazon wish list, and then we accept donations in all the ways you can accept donations through our website. Or I have people mail checks if they're more comfortable with that. But I just, I feel like when people know how to help, they want to help, and at first I don't like asking for money. I don't. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. But people want to help. They do. And if they know how and they know where it's going and what it's doing, they will help. So I've gotten better about that, about being like, this is what we need, because I got a new hospital that needs 24 boxes this year. And that's a lot of money. These boxes are not inexpensive to put together. And somehow it always works out. I had a family, they had a graduation party, and his twin sister had passed away at birth, and he wanted to somehow involve her in his graduation party, right? And they set up a table that donated to Saylor's Light in honor of her.
That's so special.
I mean, it was so special and so kind. And I got a call the day before she brought me how much money they had raised. This Jacksonville hospital wanted the boxes, and they wanted 8 of them. And when I tell you, it was crazy. She came to my driveway, and she gave me the money, and it was exactly the amount for 8 boxes. It was And I looked at her and I was like, you're not going to believe this. I was like, this exactly covers what I have to mail to Jacksonville on Monday.
Wow.
And so every time people just show up and it works out. So we went to this conference and I think I had 20 hospitals sign up that said that they want boxes or want to know about them. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I bite off more than I can chew here, right? Like, can I fund 20 more hospitals? And it's so scary, but we'll just do it and we'll try and it'll happen.
And you can't on your own, but with the help of...
And people always
show up.
They do. They're so good.
And I feel like what's so beautiful is that you get the opportunity not only to encourage the family, but to share the gospel through what you're doing, because through those devotions, that true peace, that true hope, and that true joy, even in circumstances, even in heartache, comes from Jesus.
Well, there was no other way. I'm telling you, when I tell you there was no other way that day.
There's no other way.
For there to be joy and hope for me, because this is just the hope part of it.
Yeah.
We had decided I will have no more kids, right? Like, this was too hard. This is too scary. I can't go through this again. I delivered her and I told the doctor, I said, I have to have another one. Like, and so for me to feel so hopeful that for the last several months was like, I can't put myself through this again. I can't risk this again. This is the saddest thing I've ever done. The next week at the doctor, I was like, I need you to tell me when I can have another baby. And what do you know? Here's little Lawson. Here's little Lawson. Like,
and he's rocking the world.
A year and 2 months later, and there he was. And he's
precious.
The best and the sweetest. And so that hope factor too, I was like, there's no way for that.
Yeah.
The joy was hard enough to be like, where did this, how is this here? And I'm so sad. And you're right. Like, them being able to see, like, for one, this family's been through this and they are still seeing some sort of hope. And then if they read it, I hope that they read somewhat of the devotion, or they just see the cover of it that says hope, because it's the only way I had it. There's nothing I could have done myself to have that much joy and sadness, and then heal and to have hope all in the hardest day,
And to be as successful with Saylor's Light, I feel like the Lord is just continuing to put people in your life that are passionate about this cause and want to give and want to support over and over again. And our community as well, has done a lot in different ways to support.
I know, it's so cool.
And it's beautiful. Cool. That's what's great about Statesboro. And, they always come together. And
so many good people.
It's like, so many good people.
And they come to me. Again, I don't like asking for money.
Right.
People come to me and are like, can we do a fundraiser this way, X, Y, Z? And I'm like, yes, like, how smart of you. And so for these people who are more creative about that than me and using their gifts, like whether it's the gym and it's fusion, like, we're going to work out to raise money, or it's someone with a sunflower field who's like, we've grown all these flowers. Let's let people take pictures and donate to you. And I'm like, I would have never
thought of that.
Yes, this whole community.
We did a field day. I hadn't run a 100-meter dash since never.
I got beat by a 10-year-old.
We both got whooped, and I was more concerned.
Humbled that day.
It was very humbling. I knew I wasn't going to win against the Fox.
Yeah.
But he, I was like, listen, just don't laugh if I fall. And his response was, if you fall, you're going to be so hurt that it's not going to be funny. And
because you're going to be running so fast to keep up with me.
He's right. And I did my best, but it was a really fun event, and it was a fun way to just bring awareness, and then also for people to donate and be made aware that this is even a thing, and it is so beautiful. And so we're going to link it in the show notes, and we'll link your Amazon wish list and your website, and hopefully people can be directed towards that and to give to Saylor's Light, because it's such an amazing cause, and it's so beautiful what you guys have done.
And even if not giving, because I'm always like, giving's important, but just telling people,
sharing it,
because and I'm so that you say putting people in my life, the reason I was able to go to this conference last week and speak to these nurses was because of a bereavement director somewhere else who uses our boxes, who told somebody else, who then this association called me and asked me if I, and it's just like all these different people. And then I was able to get in front of hospitals who don't have anything, and they were like, oh my gosh, we need these. I had a family last week who this would have been great for. And that breaks my heart, because I know that family didn't get the opportunity to make these memories, right? And I don't want that for anybody. And so it's just always people, right? Like they put in my life, and then it all just comes full circle. And so it's not always about the giving as much as also the just word of mouth, because if a hospital doesn't know I do this, it's hard for me to get them. My emails go to spam. I call, they think I'm selling something. Nobody thinks anything can actually be free, right? Like, they don't believe that. Like, I had one hospital I sent them to, and they didn't. I said, call me when you need more. Unfortunately, they do. They need replenished. And I'll send more. And they were like, well, we didn't call because we thought the next box would definitely cost money. And I was like, no,
this is not a subscription.
Yes. So even like word of mouth of telling your friends that are nurses or in nursing school, so that these families who aren't getting these can get them, right? Sure. So the donations are great, but me being able to get to more families is the goal. So
absolutely,
just tell people about it so I can help more.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, I always ask my guests.
You're gonna ask me a question.
I am. The last question though. Okay. But I want to know how you felt seen recently.
Okay, so this is good. I can answer this. Recently, so literally at this conference 2 days ago, there was like an exhibitor portion, so I could set up my table. They allowed me to have a nonprofit spot where I could set up the boxes. Again, it was nurses and a couple doctors they could walk through, and some of it was like medical supplies people were wanting to sell to their hospital. And I had these nurses who would come up to me, and I don't know who they are. Like, they have a name tag on, but I don't know any of these people. And so I bet there were at least 3 or 4, maybe 5, came up and just said, you have no idea how much we love these boxes and how thankful we are for them, because they were already in their hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I don't get to see them used. I don't get to talk. I don't work there. And so, and they all came up separately, and they would rush the table and be like, you have no idea how much we love these, how much our families love these, how much it means to them. Yeah. And right then I was like, and again, I don't need the validation. I don't. I know these families are sad. I know this is some sort of a comfort. But to hear it from them, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is all worth it. And like, absolutely, I'm hearing that these are working and they're helping. And it was just, it's probably the first time with Saylor's Light that I've heard like in person. Well, there's been a couple times, but at least from the nurses, to be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And it really, I don't need it. I don't need the validation, but it was nice to hear. And it just made me be like, we can do this. These 20 hospitals on the list, we're going to figure out how to get them some, so that more families can feel like that. So it was very recent that I felt, seen, and that what I was doing was working and good.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie,
for talking about this. I know it can be hard, but it's so important, the work that you guys are doing. And you can support Saylor's Light. Saylor's Light has an Instagram, website, Amazon wish list, and I'll link all of that in the show notes, and we'll tag her in the Instagram. But thank you so much again, Sonia, for being here. And thank you for listening to the ICU podcast. And I hope that you have found this conversation hopeful, uplifting, that even through tragedy and even through circumstances that we don't wish for in our lives, that we can find hope, that we can encourage others who are going through the same thing to, just be there, to show up and be present in people's lives who are struggling, to show that you care and that everybody's life matters, no matter how small. So thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll see you next episode.